Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Before we get started, I would like to thank Prototype Prime for this amazing podcasting space. Welcome to Season 3 of the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Season 3 is all about retention and company culture and how company culture plays into retention. I am joined here with my co-host, Crystal Sweeney.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming in and co-hosting this show. So to get started with this season, we're going to go a little bit in order compared to our previous seasons. We're going to start off with understanding the different generations of the workforce that are working now, the majority of them at least. And we're going to uncover some different unique factors of each generation from all of the research that we've done. We've done tons of research at Epic Culture to really understand, what are the motivating drivers and different habits of each generation, how they work together, and how can we build that into processes that we use and services that we provide in building an amazing company culture. So, Crystal, can you get us started on Generation Boomers?
I think it's important for us to really dive in and get to know the different generations that we have in the workforce today. Baby boomers are probably the oldest generation that is still working. Many of them are going into retirement. They are typically between 52 and 70 years old, to give you an idea. And the biggest thing to understand about boomers is their traits and how they got that way. For example, they lived through a generation where parents had survived the Great Depression. And in doing that, they've had to learn to be very resourceful, and they're also very thankful for work. So they are known as a generation that is kind of like a workhorse, very workaholic. They have the blend, the work-life blend or balance is not necessarily their forte.
Got it. Yeah. And, I have a grandmother like many that lived through this period. She's a boomer. And, there's a lot of artifacts and remnants of that generation, right? I go into her house and there's lots and lots of, there's enough food and canned food and boxed food to last, through many generations that will never be needed. But, it's that resourcefulness of needing to be prepared and, having to have that around in case something happens. And there's a lot of effects of growing up in the Great Depression and having parents in the Great Depression and World War, where my understanding is they feel like they need to hoard some items like foodstuffs and things like that, just from the area a generation and age that they grew up in.
Exactly. And that also goes into their job and the pride that they take in their job. They tend to be very competitive. They don't want to lose their job to another person. So they're going to work hard to make sure that they're doing the best that they can. And with that mentality, that means they value their reputation. That is super important to them. They're going to work hard to make sure that they have good quality work, and that they can also show, the higher ups, that they are very capable of doing it, and they're going to do it the best. And with that comes, because they value their reputation, they're looking to move up in the ladder. They're not looking to jump, from job to job. They want to stay at one job. They want to perfect it. They want to move up, and that's where they get their value.
Yeah, so staying around for a long time and moving up through a workforce and building that reputation over time was just really inherent to the culture of that generation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's very important to them. So.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we should know about boomers as we move forward and start to look at, just the generation and age that they grew up in? What about on the technology side?
Yeah. So on the technology side, this generation grew up, if there was a computer in the household, then you were definitely moving on up in the world. So, they are adapting well to technology. They're very capable of learning. Many of them are, right alongside with most others as far as using the computer. So, that has started to impact their generation, and they are able to adapt, whereas the older generations, the traditionalists, which is the generation before, they're pretty much just, kind of leaving that alone. So they, as far as technology goes, they're very adaptable, and most of them are willing to learn what they need to learn to move forward. And the other thing that sticks out for the baby boomers is that, because they want to move up in a ladder, then they're going to be at your company for a lifetime. They are looking for a lifelong career where they can master their trade. So, these people are going to be loyal, and they're going to want to make sure that they are prepared to be able to stay there for a long period of time. Yeah,
so I would assume, in this day and age that, the tension with the boomer generation, and I'm not a boomer, so I can't speak for them, would be, a little bit of a feeling of instability, right? With everybody switching roles and different, the turnover rates and things that are happening, and not getting the stability that they would look for traditionally or have experienced traditionally. So I want to go back to the computer thing real quick. Again, sharing with grandparents. Same grandfather of the grandmother I spoke about earlier. He was an engineer, definitely a boomer. In this case, he would still be a boomer. It was really interesting to see. He had a computer. I think he was the first person that I sat down with and worked on a computer. We were putting, large format floppy disks into the drive, and he did some computer programming and things like that. So I think that's the first generation where you start to see people with computers at home, although it was very, in the younger years, it was very rare, right? And they were thousands and thousands of dollars, and they had it for work or something else. He was an entrepreneur and business owner, so I guess it facilitated part of what he was doing in the organization and in his business. Any other items that we would like to share that we found through our research in understanding the boomer generation?
That's pretty much it. I mean, they as far as their ability to learn, I mean, I think the most important message that we can relay today is, as a boomer, whatever they can do to keep relevant in the technology space, especially with the advancements that's happening in businesses today. I could share a funny story. Was an IT manager at a bank at one point in time, and I had somebody that they had brought in to replace my spot in the accounting department, and she was a boomer, and she came in, and the first thing she asked when she sat down at my desk, I was like, okay, well, just let's get this program pulled up so we can start looking at the accounting. And her first question was, well, how do I turn the computer on? And to me, it was like, wow, this is somebody that's going to be, playing an important role in the accounting department. So, the message would be, make sure that they're constantly utilizing the technology that they can get their hands on to stay relevant. That's pretty much, they'll be successful.
Yeah, so definitely a challenging gap and chasm to cross, especially with the speed of technology. So, definitely playing into, I think, the strengths of the resourcefulness, the work ethic of a generation, and then figuring out how to balance that with making sure that the technology piece comes around and anything else educationally around that is filled in, so that you can leverage the strengths and they can leverage their strengths, and then training can make up for any struggles.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we hope that this has been an educational overview, a little bit about the boomer generation. We look forward to seeing you on our next podcast where we talk about Gen X. Please go find us on SoundCloud, on iTunes, or any Stitcher, any other podcast platform that you're using. And if you found this podcast or this series helpful, give us a ranking of 5 if you so choose. And we look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.